Hi folks, I'm going to do a little resin demonstration for you just onto canvas, so you've got an idea of how it's done and how not to do it, or the ins and outs of it. So I will pour, say 30ml. I'm using a 2:1 resin, which is 1 hardener to 2 resin. So there is 10 mils or 10 grams. Zero it, and then I will double that, so we need 20. It's like that. Right, the next step is mixing. I always put mine in the microwave for 5 seconds. What the microwave does is it makes it, obviously heats it a little, makes it softer, so it's much easier to mix, and it takes the mixing time down a little. I'm not sure on my positioning there, but if you can see the resin and the lines in it, now if I mix, all those lines are going to disappear, and you're going to see just a clearer liquid with a few bubbles. Don't worry about the bubbles, they will just naturally pop out at a later point. And we do have a method of getting bubbles out anyway, but that's not a biggie at this point in time. So when it comes to pouring, okay, that's probably mixed enough for me. So when it comes to pouring the resin onto canvas, you've got to be aware that because there's no structure in behind there, it's going to pool in the middle. So you can pour onto canvas. I should have had something ready. What I do if I'm going to do that is I'll have something in there that's actually propping it up, so it's holding that surface level. That way it's not going to pull if you've got that structure in there holding that. The other way to do it is just to pour onto blocks. But the bigger the canvas, the harder it is. I prefer not to pour onto canvas, I will pour onto blocks. Right, so there's 2 types of finishes you can have with the resin. One is this type that has got a very thin layer of resin on it, which just gives it a gloss. Or the other type is this. You can see, hopefully, there's actually a build up and a nice beveled edge around that. Don't worry about the sides because we can sand that off and then just paint them up, or we can deal with that as well anyway. But so what I'm going to quickly show you is how I prefer to do mine. As you can see, I've masked that up already, and I could have masked the base as well. So what I do is, once it's mixed, pour a little bit in the middle. There is a formula to know how much resin you're going to need, so that does help. So I would always pour half what I need on. Just tip it around like that, and then drop the rest in. Okay, so that's one way. The other way is a little bit more messy, but it's just a matter of dipping your fingers in and rubbing it all over. Resin will tend to pull back on itself if there's not enough to cover the canvas. So this method you might need to do a couple of layers. But it will give you a nice thin shiny effect. So this resin I'm using is a 2-to-1, as I said, and it will take roughly around 4 to 5 hours to dry, and it this particular one will yellow in bright sunlight, so it's not good for outside. I wouldn't use it for anything for outside, and it's a really easy resin to use. Right, so I'll go back to this one. So what I would do with this to get that beveled edge is I'd wait for about 30 to 35 minutes, and then what I would do is rip, it's a bit hard with gloves on, rip the masking tape, and you can tell by the drips, so you would pull this off. And at the 35-minute mark, obviously this isn't going to be the 35-minute mark, and it's starting to run, but if it was around the 35-minute mark, the drips would not be as constant, and all you need to do is just rub your hands around the edge, obviously with gloves on, and then you're going to have a lovely smooth edge, just like that. So there we have it. That's how to basically pour resin. The other thing that I'll show you is just to get the bubbles out. As I said before, this is a big butty gun, but you don't have to use something like this. It's just handy for the bigger pieces that I do. So just quickly over like that. We'll take all the bubbles out. You can actually use a little one, which is just as good. I think that's about it. So yeah, happy resin pouring.